All right.
So here we are back at the Church Guy and the Addict. I'm Don and I'm the church guy.
I'm Danny and I'm the addict. Welcome.
Hey Danny, how are you, brother?
Awesome. How are you, Don?
You doing all right? Good. Beautiful day out there.
It's nice.
Very
Sunny.
good. It's cold, I know.
It's cold.
Danny, we're going to talk about the boundaries today. I know you and I had a little conversation before we started here about boundaries, and we thought maybe we had already covered it in number 2. What was the discussion in number 2?
Ground rules.
Ground rules, yeah. But after looking at the question a little further, we got a question from somebody that sent us an email. And by the way, if anybody wants the questions asked or discussed on this program, they can send the requests by email to the church guy in the attic at gmail.com. So we got a question. So anyway, yeah, I think it's a pretty good standalone question, even though the person in the email says it's not really a question, but they want us to discuss it. But let me read it and then we can get going with it.
Okay.
It says, Don and Danny, I've been following your series on YouTube and find them quite interesting and informative. I'm a Christian myself and have struggled in relationships with alcoholics because my religion tells me to be like Jesus, be available and giving to those who need you. Alcoholics/addicts not in recovery will use that against someone in order to get what they want. The difficulty lies in setting boundaries, as the sober alcoholic will respect them, but when drinking will stomp all over them. In order to be loving and respectful to myself, I cannot have an active alcoholic/drinker in my life. This, however, sets up a conflict within them that says I am not being a good Christian. I don't have a question per se, so as I said, not a question, but would love to hear your thoughts on boundaries without guilt in intimate relationships, i.e. spouses, parents, children, siblings, close friendships. But I think the question is, although she says it's not a question, is maybe some church people / Christians feel guilty when they have to set up boundaries. So if they're in a relationship and I don't know this person, so I'm not sure if it's husband, wife, son, daughter, brother, sister, who it is, but sometimes if we set boundaries so we don't get hurt ourselves, then we feel guilty about it because, as she said in the email, Christians are supposed to exemplify Christ, or what would Jesus do? And apparently Jesus would always be there to help you no matter what, even though you've, hurt them numerous times. You're expected, I guess, to continue to be in that relationship with that person. So let me get your perspective on this, Danny. Christians feeling guilty for distancing themselves from an alcoholic or an addict.
Well, I think the big the thing here is that she did say once they start drinking.
That's right.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but Jesus got pissed off too.
Yeah.
And the other part to that too is, if you want to set some boundaries, let's start with number 1. And that's if the person doesn't remain sober, then, all shots are off. I mean, come on, let's face it, we're not people who are like this woman, I'm assuming it's a woman, says that, the person is manipulating them and expecting them to be like Jesus. Well, she's not, or they're not, or the person's not. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's important to in any relationship, there's 2 sides. And if one side's bending the rules to their advantage, and then we call it manipulation, then all bets are off. You know what I mean? Because if the person doesn't want to help themselves, how can someone help another person? It's like leading a horse to water and making them to drink. Well, the horse isn't going to drink if it ain't thirsty. And if the person doesn't want to sober up and better their life, well, then the person who's the Christian is just victimizing themselves, and they shouldn't feel guilty about that.
Well, that's actually, you know what, Danny, that as I think about this a little bit, I've probably felt that guilt myself, because you feel like you just need to be there for that person no matter what. And as a Christian, you do think that, there's a reason why they started using again, or something happened in their life, mother got sick, or their kids were in the hospital or something that caused them to start to drink. So you kind of feel sorry for that person. And
Mhm.
then you
Or the
feel
day ended
guilty,
in Y.
but you'd feel guilty abandoning them, like saying, I'm not taking your calls. Like, I know over the years, you've always told me, when you're dealing with somebody who's in recovery, don't call me if you're drinking. Don't call me if you're drunk.
Call before you get drunk. Call before you get
I
high.
know,
That's
I
what you
know
got to
that's what
do.
you're supposed to do, but how do you say to the person, oh, you've been drinking, and hang up on
Yeah, because they're not going to remember the conversation anyway.
them?
They're not going to remember their antics, if you will.
Yeah.
So you're just wasting your time, wasting your breath. And then last but not least, it's 3 a.m. You got to go to work at 7 or 5 in the morning. You have to get up or what have you. You
Yeah.
know. So let's put it to you this way, Don. If you're not a healthy Christian man who's sleep deprived, worrying about Frank, let's say,
Yeah.
how are you going to be good to your family? How are you going to be good to your job? How are you going to be good to yourself? How are you going to, because if you don't take care of number one, you can't help anyone else.
Yeah.
And let's face it, the drunken addict is just going to manipulate you, and they're going to put, oh, don't you care about me? Oh, don't you love me? Oh, don't you blah blah blah? You know what I mean? They're manipulating you to their advantage. Oh, you don't want to see me hungry, do you, Mom? Send me some money. you
Mm.
know I had a lady tell me that the other day, and I said, well, how old's your son? She said, well, I don't know, I think she said he was 40 years old, and she was sending him birthday money. I said, the last time I got birthday money, I was like 12 years old from my parents. So
Mm.
if you know that this person's accepting this money to go get hired to drink, whether it's their birthday or not, you're just helping that person die. It's
Mm.
that simple.
Mm.
And I don't think Jesus wants to see anybody dying. I think what Jesus wants to do is see this person in some sort of recovery, doing the steps and becoming closer to the God of his understanding, which will help him stay clean and sober and forget about all this manipulation stuff, because that's what it's happening here.
It shows you how complicated it really is, though, Danny, because the compassionate side of, say, me as a church person or Christian person is to go find that person at 3 o'clock in the morning that's been drinking. And obviously, I had that experience, where I did get a call and I went and found somebody, and then they got physical with me in the parking lot of the bar, because this person was a minor, and I told the bartender they shouldn't have been serving him. And like, I mean, everything just escalates once booze is involved. But from the Christian point of view, there's a side of us, and you have it too, I'm sure. I mean, you're a Christian person. You have more. I mean, you have personal experience with alcoholism and drug addiction. But for me, who doesn't, and maybe this person in the email doesn't either, you just think there's no limit. You have to help, 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 help all the time.
Well, I think you answered your own question, Don. So when you went at 3 in the morning,
Yeah.
you were physically assaulted, were you not? Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, he wanted to fight me, yeah, because I was
Yeah,
going to
and
break up
so
the
and so
party,
basically everything you did it help?
even though he called me. Yeah. Did it
But
help?
my
No.
question is to you, Don. Did it help,
No, it
or
didn't
did you
help in
waste
the
your
end.
time?
But
Maybe you would have been better off to say, yeah, call me when you're sober, and you hang up.
so maybe church
Because,
people, maybe I'm speaking as the church guy here, maybe we have a hero complex, where we think we've got to go out and save this person from something that's going to happen to them in their drunken stupor.
And only God can do that kind of stuff. You know, we can be a lending ear and compassionate and what have you.
Yeah.
But the whole point is we can't ride in on this white horse and expect, Joe or Frank to be sober and everything's going to end happily ever after, because as we know, we've had men that we've helped who've died. And
Mm,
as much as we've been there for them, tried to be compassionate to them, try to be sympathetic and understanding. And please don't get me wrong, I don't have a cold heart. I'd love to help everybody. But
mm,
let's face the facts, 9 out of 10 people die of this awful disease, whether it's drugs or alcohol. And so, really, until we get the person ready to be honest and ready to do the work. See, when you're saying the person's drinking again or the person's drugging again, well, all
yeah.
bets are off, because the person's just gonna do number one thing, and the number one thing is, how do I manipulate you enough for you to give me money or for you to do what I need you to do so I can continue doing what I want to do,
Yeah.
right? And addicts and alcoholics are the greatest for making people feel guilty, making people feel bad. Oh, if you didn't do this to me, I wouldn't be like that.
Mm.
All that is 100% BS.
And I imagine it's even harder if it's like a husband and wife
Exactly.
or a mother and a son. It's
And
got to be very difficult.
if you're drinking, for instance, if the person's drinking and says to the wife, "Oh, honey, call in sick for me because I drank too much last night. And so if you call in, it'll sound better."
Right.
And that's where the wife should say, "Nope, I didn't get drunk last night. You need to call in because you were the one drinking and it's
Mm.
your job. But if the wife keeps calling, guess what? He's going to keep drinking. He's going to keep calling in sick.
Well, and these things cause conflicts too, though, Danny. So it's probably easier just to make the phone call than to stand
What
up
what
to
do you
this
want?
person.
But the thing is, Don, what do you want? Life to be easier or the problem to be resolved? Because when you make it
Yeah.
easier, then you're just enabling the person to
Right.
continue doing what they're doing, and that's ruining their lives and
Yeah.
yours.
I just took a look at our list of videos that we've done because I'm surprised we haven't really hit on this tough love question before. This is kind of what we're talking about. I mean, in video number 2, we talk about ground rules, but this is something a little bit different. This setting boundaries with a person is um, sounds more like a subject of tough love,
Well,
where you
Don,
have,
let's face it. What if someone loses their wife, let's say, and their home and their job and their this and their that? Then when you hit bottom, then you're ready for change. You see what I'm saying?
you know,
But if you don't hit bottom and everything's still going hunky dory and you still got your wife and you still got your job and everybody's enabling you because they don't want to make daddy mad or the boyfriend mad, or they want everything to be nice, or how do you say it, less of a problem at home,
mm,
then you're not going to help. And the problem is just going to continue for years, and then it'll escalate. It might get worse. Maybe in a blackout, he might stab mommy or shoot
mm,
mommy or kill one of
yeah,
the kids or whatever. Like, you don't know. But all I'm trying to say is the longer you enable this behavior, the longer it'll happen. And the person who's the Christian is just going to get sicker and sicker and sicker.
so setting boundaries then for the purpose of this discussion today, you're saying it's okay, even as me as a Christian person, to be able to say, don't call me right now, hang up on somebody who calls me when they're inebriated.
Why not? They're not going to remember the conversation anyway.
Mm,
They might even not even remember that they called you, because the next day you're going to say, "Oh, Joe, do you realize you called me last night at 3 in the morning?" And they'll say, "Oh, did
mm.
I really? Oh, I know you got to go to work, but I had no idea I did that," because they did it in a blackout.
Yeah, I just had that happen to me in the last couple of weeks. I had somebody text messaging me for probably a solid hour before I realized this is not making sense. This person is back drinking. And it's so easy to get engaged in the conversation, like to get drawn in, even with the phone call with the other person I was talking to you about. I got blamed for going to get him because it was his birthday and he thought he had the right to get right loaded that night. And I thought, like you say, I thought I was coming in on my white horse there to save the planet. And he did not want to be saved. So it became my problem, became my fault
Mm-hmm.
that we're having this
And
conflict in the
that's
parking
what
lot.
they do. They switch it. They manipulate it to make it like you're the bad guy. And meanwhile, they're the ones who called you at whatever hour
Yeah.
to come rescue them, if you will.
Yeah.
So you're not helping anybody by being that shining white knight. You want to save the day, and you want, that's nice in Disney TV and stuff like that. But this isn't Disney TV. This is reality, and the
Yeah.
reality of it is, anybody who's drinking or getting high is going to affect the people that love them. You know.
Yeah. There's something interesting in this email too that maybe I'll just point out is alcoholics slash addicts not in recovery will use that against someone in order to get what they want. The difficulty lies in setting boundaries, as the sober alcoholic will respect them, but when drinking will stomp all over them. So all of a sudden that person's out drinking or getting high, and the sober party in this relationship is at home, and all of a sudden there's a phone call or a knock on the door or a text message, and oh, that person's drunk. You know what I mean? You just don't even have a chance to catch your breath, and the sky's falling. So you have to, I think, you establish these boundaries early on, and probably even in conversation. It's like, here's the agreement. I get a phone call from you because I know you told me many times people know that you're helping, that if they call you and they've been drinking, you don't take the call.
No.
And
And the other
you're
thing I do,
a good
I just
Christian.
wanted to I just want to interrupt it,
Yeah.
is that if you want a good night's sleep, and you, like, for myself, I help a lot of men and
Yeah.
some women, but primarily men, because men should help men. But anyway, so how I get a good night's sleep is I take my phone and I put it on silent,
That's a good way.
and I can sleep the night away, and
Yeah.
then my sleep doesn't get interrupted.
Yeah. I do that now. Back when my mother was still alive, I'd leave it on because I'd always think I was going to get a call from the nursing home. But no, that's true. You got to be able to turn the phone off, and you deserve that. You deserve a good night's sleep. Everybody does.
Yeah, and let's face it, the person who's drinking doesn't respect you
Yeah.
and what you're like. You got to go to work, and they know it, but they don't care.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? Because it's all about them, right?
Yeah.
And so once again, to protect yourself and to understand that, we can only help those who want to help themselves. It's that simple.
Yeah.
I can't put it any more plain and simple than that. If the person is drinking, then you can't help them until they sober up,
Mm.
because they won't remember anything that they're doing when they're drunk anyway. Because 9 times
Mm.
out of 10, they're in a total blackout.
Yeah.
And so they don't know that they even called you once again. I know I'm repeating myself, but I'm just
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah. Well, that's good to hear that from you, Danny, that it is okay, because even the first time I read this email, I didn't really relate to it the way I am now as we're having the conversation, where I realize that I've actually struggled with those same feelings of guilt, because, and I think Christians falsely so, church people falsely so, think that they are going to be the one that can do the heavy lifting for this person and help them get them clean and sober, whereas it's not us, it's that person helping himself.
Exactly. And
And
and Don, as you know, we've been there for people who've
yeah,
passed away, and we've done everything we could, and they still pass away.
and you still feel
And
guilty after though, Danny.
sure, because you're thinking, could I have done more? Could I have done
Yeah.
more? But you got to remember, you can only do so much because we're humans.
Yeah.
You know, we can only do so much. And we're not in the business of babysitting and changing people's lives because they don't want to change their lives, Don. They like the familiarity of, you know, doing what they want to do, manipulating who they can manipulate to get more money or drugs or time or love or compassion or whatever. Oh, feel sorry for me, you know, and you know, mom, I'm hungry, you know, I got, you know, with this COVID, there's no money, and so please send me more money. And when we know the money's going for alcohol or drugs, I don't know too many drug addicts or alcoholics who's going to have a good meal first before they go get drunk or high. Like, it doesn't happen that way, you know. It doesn't. You know, you got to do what you got to do, and that's it. You know, so you know we got to understand that we're powerless to help the people. You know, only God can do what we can't do, and we got to accept that because we're
Mm.
not God.
Mm.
You know.
Did you experience that yourself, Danny, when you were getting clean? Like, were you calling people that were hanging up on you?
Oh, many times. But
Yeah.
I wasn't getting clean, Don. I was still doing what I had to do
Yeah.
to, you know, I gave once in my whole experience of recovery, did I finally get it after my fifth treatment center.
Wow.
And then by then I really wanted to stay clean and sober and get recovered. You know, it took me 5 different treatment centers because I'd be in a treatment center getting high and getting drunk, you know, like I was still doing my thing.
Mm.
And I knew once I leave this place, I got more drugs and alcohol. This is when I had an apartment that I got back at my apartment. So I'm just killing time till I do my 30 days,
Mm.
let my work, let me get back in, or I have a relationship I'm going to get back to, or whatever, just to appease them. I was doing this treatment thing, but I
Right.
was never clean and sober in any treatment center I was ever in until the
Mm.
last one. Until I was sick and tired of being sick and tired, and I was at the end of my rope, and all the people who quote unquote love me had to wash their hands of me for
Mm.
me to get well, for me
Mm.
to get on this journey of recovery. Because if I could manipulate just one more person, I could still be out there, and
Right.
everybody was done with me. You know, when I got up to here to Brockville, I was at the Scott Mission who paid for my ticket to come here to get
Mm.
well, and there's no way I could reimburse and sell the ticket to someone else or blah blah blah. It had to be me on that bus at that day on that time, because
Mm.
nobody would lend me a cent because they knew it'd go right to drugs and alcohol. They knew it.
Mm.
So they got smart.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so
that's
I
good.
wouldn't call
Yeah.
I wouldn't
Sorry.
call it tough love, Don.
Yeah.
I'd call it true love. Because
Well, that's good.
sometimes you got to turn away and walk away to help somebody realize that, you know what, I don't have anybody or anything in my life, and now
Mm.
I better change my life, because if I don't get clean and sober, I'm going to die, and I'm
Mm.
going to die alone. And most addicts and alcoholics do, they die alone,
Mm.
unfortunately.
So that's been a good discussion today, Danny. We'll end it there, but probably the conclusion is don't get drawn in to the somebody you know has been drinking or using. Just put the phone down.
And the main thing is, if you're not well, how can you help someone else?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?